peaceful village suddenly became more bustling because of a strange case. Boss Lu Feng and Captain Chow were also notified and quickly showed up. When they arrived at the scene, they met the policeman at the village and heard everything again. The victim was a boy who was only 13 years old, and according to the policeman, this area frequently had similar murders lately. Boss Lu Feng also inquired more carefully whether these murders were the result of robbery or if they were being investigated for other reasons. However, nothing was suspicious. No property was stolen, the children died in the same manner, and the villagers often said it to be the result of evil magic. As soon as he said it, both of them were whisked away to the victim's home, which also served as the crime scene. Leader and Boss Lu Feng were both taken aback by the victim's dead posture, which was out of the ordinary. The strangest thing was that the dumbbells are tied to the child's hands, which begs the question of why the perpetrator did the same, and the child's posture was also extremely strange. After observation, Boss Lu Feng also said that for some reason it related to the cause of the perpetrator's crime, because the dumbbell was possibly the perpetrator deliberately tying it to the ground and not wanting it to be tied to the child's hands. Boss Lu Feng decided to focus his investigation on the dumbbell. After careful examination, Boss Lu Feng ordered the boy's body to be brought down for further examination. The boy's body was slowly taken down and there was no sign of any suspicion. Captain Chow approached and intended to examine the boy's insides, and after unbuttoning the boy's shirt, another strange thing appeared. Captain Chow hurriedly reported to his boss to see for himself. Both Boss Lu Feng and everyone present, after seeing the incident, were also very curious and a bit surprised. Underneath the shirt were some female overalls, which rural women usually wore as a bra. So why was this boy wearing it like that? The police chief of this area did not care much about the question. He said that due to the boy's gender, he dressed like that. But Boss Lu Feng didn't think so. He thought that all the strange things in a case were suspicious, couldn't be subjective. And after a scene inspection was completed, Boss Lu Feng ordered the boy's body to be returned to headquarters so that the forensic examination could be more thoroughly examined. The local police officer also followed along to the headquarters in order to investigate the case together, and everyone quickly returned so that the forensic analysts could soon examine the body. In the car, Boss Lu Feng asked about the previous cases, and was told by the police that the cases were very similar to how the crime was committed. And that police officer claimed it was because the children's families were members of a cult, which was causing all these problems. But Boss Lu Feng disagreed, and he said it was definitely an individual's cause, and blamed the police for taking the case lightly and didn't examine the scene carefully. Any case would have its cause, and it was impossible to unjustly blame anyone without fully investigating everything. Immediately the card returned to the headquarters. The forensic also had long-awaited orders. But the local police insisted that there was nothing in the small village for the perpetrator to commit the crime. Chief Lu Feng did not want to argue with him, so he had just asked them to hurry to the forensic room and listen to the forensic judgment. The forensic room at headquarters 703 was the most highly specialized forensic room in the entire organization. When they arrived, the forensic side was also nearing the end of the initial diagnosis. The policeman did not seem to believe what Chief Lu Feng said, so he was eager to learn the results. The forensic team discovered numerous suspicious items on the victim's body. Chief Lu Feng discovered many suspicious points as well, but he asked the forensic to speak carefully again to ensure that what he discovered was correct. Forensic examination had pointed out many singularities on the victim. The holes and the facial expressions of the victim was the most suspicious of all. On the victim's head, there was a hole like a nail, and it seemed that when the boy died, the killer proceeded to crucify the boy's forehead. The boy's face was very pale and his eyes had dark circles, not as dead as reported. At this moment, the policeman did not want to be said to be irresponsible, so he protested that the boy had just died this morning. The forehead's injury has been caused by the boy who fell before his death. But the forensic insisted that the wound was caused by a nail stabbing, and according to autopsy, the boy had died a day earlier and was only hung up today. After hearing the forensics judgment, the policeman expressed fear of being reprimanded, so sweat was pouring out of him. But Boss Lu Feng never reprimanded him and asked more about the boy's family situation recently. At this time, the other policeman reported that the boy's family had been going back to his hometown for 3 days and that the boy was alone at home. After hearing all the clues, Boss Lu Feng guessed that the camisole was not by accident. It certainly had something hidden behind it. And the dumbbell, there was definitely a mystery in the way of killing. This case wasn't simple. According to the subordinates, all of the children killed in the area were roughly the same age. So based on all the clues, this was definitely a serial murder case. But why kill these children? They had nothing to take advantage of. Their family was also very poor, so what was the point of killing them? With the police's suspicions, Boss Lu Feng became enraged, believed that all deaths had cause and that nothing was meaningless. After being blamed, the police took the serious action to investigate the incident and together with Boss Lu Feng summarized the location of the murder and the perpetrator's general method of committing the crime. Finally, Boss Lu Feng ordered Captain Chow to quickly open a meeting with all the police in charge of the case. And the boss also ordered all the policemen in the area to attend this meeting. He wanted to coordinate to resolve the murder soon. After just over an hour, all gathered at the headquarters, waiting for Chief Chow to preside over the emergency meeting. He has prepared a map of the area where the recent murders happened. And all cases had one thing in common. It was that they were all about a month apart, and the victims were boys aged 13 to 15 years old. When the perpetrator commits the crime, they would dress the victim in women's clothing. And the crime points were not far apart. The perpetrator was likely to be in the central area, and the culprit was definitely only one person, and according to judgment, he would not be able to move far after causing such crimes, at least until next month. So it should make it easy to localize the area where the culprit was hiding. Because of the professionalism of the 703 investigation team, all the policemen in that area felt very awe-inspiring and delighted that they would quickly catch the killer. Boss Lu Feng immediately ordered the dispatch of the investigation squad, led by Captain Chow. After multiple investigations and ransackings, there was only one house that remained suspicious. All were consistent with those mysterious cases, so Captain Chow reported to Boss Lu Feng that the gun was used to enter the house. Not waiting for Captain Chow to finish his words, Boss Lu Feng was ready to raid, unable to let the suspect escape. Captain Chow and some of his teammates ambushed from behind. The back door was a tall, sturdy wooden door, but it was easily breakable as they went inside. There was a large courtyard inside, so they hid outside to observe the situation. After a while, without any movement inside, they immediately rushed in, and inside there was only one strangely dressed cloaked person sitting in front of an altar. He still turned his face calmly as if he didn't know what was going on. An old man looked old, his face wrinkled but frightening. Suddenly he jumped up and dashed away. He was moving so quickly that Captain Chow couldn't even catch up with him, but he hadn't gone far when he heard Chief Lu Feng's voice from the front yard. The suspicious man was apprehended in the front yard by Boss Lu Feng and his teammates after being rushed out. Captain Chow quickly removed his cloak to get a better look at his face, only to discover that he was in his mid-20s but appeared extremely old. Chief Lu Feng ordered an investigation into him. When he arrived at headquarters, he gradually revealed the heinous things he had done. During the interrogation, he appeared strange. He didn't act like a normal person. He claimed to be practicing a lifelong technique, and that by killing 10 children, he could gather enough souls to do so. Wearing female clothing to increase the spirit of the soul, and after death, the soul would be held by dumbbells, unable to escape, and he would come to capture those souls. When he heard the murderer's sick words, Boss Lu Feng became enraged and ordered him detained immediately. Finally, the case would be closed, as Captain Chow gathered all of the case documents. He returned them to Chief Lu Feng and gave them to the area police chief to keep on file in that area. He wanted them to keep it safe and to remember that every case required the police to focus their attention on it before it could be solved quickly. When Boss Lu Feng and Captain Chow left, he felt that humans were too cruel and that evil magic must be completely eradicated. Another mysterious case was closed, and the burden became heavier.